everyone, welcome back to Pleasure Principles. I'm your host Avik, and today we are diving deep into the world of online dating, healing after a narcissist, and navigating casual sex with intention and humor. So, my guest today is the brilliant, hilarious, and deeply inspiring Charity Sinclair. So, welcome to the show, Charity.
Thank you so much for having me, Avik. I'm really excited to be here and chat with you.
Lovely, lovely. So, before we start delving deep into this topic, I'll quickly love to introduce you to all of our listeners. Dear listeners, Charity is an author and storyteller whose new book, We Are All Dating the Same Guy, takes readers on a wild and heartful journey through the ups and downs of modern dating after betrayal. So, from uncovering her fiance's shocking double life to embracing a healing journey filled with laughter, courage, and even a few coed nuances, saunas. So, Charity has lived to tell the tale, and she's here to help us laugh, learn, and heal together. So, buckle up because this conversation is going to be equal parts of fun, raw, and insightful. So, welcome to the show again.
Awesome. Let's start. Go for it.
Lovely, lovely. So, Charity, like your story begins with such a bombshell, let's say. Discovering your fiance's double life and calling off a wedding. How did that moment shape your perspective on trust and the way you approach dating now?
Yeah. I mean, it felt like a bombshell when it happened, right?
Yeah.
Like I had some serious, and I didn't realize it at the time. I ended up reading this book that's really popular that talks about trauma called The Body Keeps the Score. And they talk about all these things, the different types of trauma. And after reading that book, I was like, oh my gosh, yeah,
Mm.
I was floating through life afterwards, just like feeling like molasses. Like I completely disassociated when I immediately found out what was happening. And the context and the deeper story there is essentially I was 4 weeks away from getting married, and this girl had texted me because she saw our wedding registry online, and essentially was like, "Hey, are you so and so's fiance? I am his ex-girlfriend. I just wanted to swap stories because this is what I'm hearing." And sure enough, I learned that they've been dating for the past 4 years, and I was with this guy for 7 years, right? So, and come to find out, it wasn't just her; it was other women as well. So it turned my world upside down because I was with this man that I loved for 7 years, thinking I knew everything about him, and there he is holding all these other different lies behind his back. And so it at first and continuing actually, I'm still going through that journey of trusting and opening up. And so that's one of the ways that it affected me was just not saying what someone says, I guess, for truth, which can be a good thing too, right? You want to make sure that their words are congruent with their actions. And so when I went back out into the dating world, that's something that I was really vigilant about. And at times, almost actually hyper vigilant to the point where it could have been a bit toxic, where, everyone has slip ups. We're all human. But I was so set on having someone that was so honest, right? That was something that I struggled with, I think, for a little bit. Um, Other things that impacted me after this relationship, I valued different things. So, at first, I was probably quicker to get into a relationship, an intimate relationship without the label. And afterwards, I mean, it took me a couple of tries. It took, like anything, it takes practice. I found sex before I knew what we were it wasn't working for me. I wasn't a girl that could have casual sex. And actually, there's research out there that shows that oxytocin, which is the love hormone that gets released during sex, that is released more in women than men, which means biologically we are more attached. And so that was something interesting to learn about as I went through this journey. So I was a bit more vigilant about sex within relationships too, and just understanding the impact it had on me, right? There could be other people out there that are completely casual, happy with casual and that's what they want, awesome. It didn't work for me because I wanted, someone long term and someone a like partner. Um, so I valued sex differently and where it happens within the relationship. Um, I would also say that before I loved like my ex, he was the definition of super charismatic. He was the life of the party. I loved to party. I love to have a good time. And so that's something that um for me was a bit of a swap. And throughout our relationship, as it got further in, at first it was so fun to go to any event with him. He knew how to chat with anyone. I loved having him by my side. But over time, because he needed his supply and needed to be the center of attention, he was always the central person within these social settings. And he wasn't emotionally responsive, perhaps, to what I needed within those, checking in, attuning. Um, and trust me, I can hold my own, but it's nice to have a partner that is really with you with an experience as opposed to driving towards the attention and being the center of attention. And so that's something that actually really turned me off going forward. And I wanted someone that was perhaps a little bit more even keeled and emotionally attuned to our collective relationship and experience as we experience the world together too. Um, and another thing as well was I was putting, I think, finances higher up or like, is this guy and it wasn't I think in general, and there's data that supports this, that women actually prioritize financial security in their partner more so than men do. Men prioritize physical attributes. And so I realized I was successful in my career. Like, why am I prioritizing? Why do I need to make sure that this guy has to make more money than me, be more successful, have the nice car, whatever? What really matters is that we have the same financial values. How do we think about building a life together? How do we think about debt and saving and things like that? And do we have to have the fancy things, right? It's nice to have adventures once in a while, but it's good to save too. And so I was realizing that perhaps I was too, my ex was just for context, he worked in sales at a big bank and was very successful and had a, that suit wearing job, went in every day. And I found that attractive. And not to say that that job isn't attractive now, right? With when I went out dating again. But it wasn't like the number one thing that I was looking for. It turned out to be that changed to, is this person financially stable? Are they good with their money, right? They don't have to make more than me, whatever else. I can provide for myself. And that's great because it gives me more optionality within the dating market as well. I think a lot of us women get hung up on like, he has to pay for the tab. He has to make more money than me. It's like, why? And it's shown actually that I think it's 20 years ago now that college graduation rates are higher for women now than they are for men, right? So why are we, if we're graduating at a higher rate, whatever, why are we requiring that they have to make more money than us? Can it just be that they're making like a good living and that's it? Um, so I put less of a focus on finances and more of a focus on, again, the emotional responsiveness, kindness, honesty, the things, of course, that everyone talks about, but do they actually do it in practice? Or is the subconscious coming in and they're prioritizing the guy with the nice car or whatever else? So I think those were some of the things that really changed my perspective on what I found attractive in a partner coming out of that relationship. And, the trust was a big thing, but I think as well, one of the positives there was um, I got really vigilant about if I did see inconsistent behavior, whatever else, I was way more comfortable cutting it off because of what I experienced. And I considered that a positive that I wasn't wasting my time. Whereas before, I may have not had the ability to do that or maybe logicize it away as something else. And
Yeah.
um, I just valued my time and loved myself so much more to not put myself in that situation.
Lovely. Really lovely. Thank you so much for sharing this. And I love that you have taken what could have been a jaded outlook and turned it into something empowering. So uh, it's a reminder that while pain changes us, it doesn't have to harden us. And listeners, take a note that boundaries aren't walls; they are the guidelines for healthier connections. So yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, and all those things took a lot of practice, right? Like, I did not get it right coming out the door, and, like, having honest conversations, being able to when their words weren't lining up with their actions, maybe before I would, like, ignore it. Um, but when I just came out, I'd open up the conversation, but maybe not as authentically as I should have, and over time, when you do that over and over again, you get good at having some of those conversations, not in a pointing a finger way, but in a, "Hey, we're people together, and, like, it's okay." But yeah, it was a journey. It was a couple-year journey, not something I got out of the gate.
yeah, exactly true. And also, like when we're talking about this, online dating can be such a mixed bag, right? So, in your experience, what's the most unexpectedly hilarious or maybe bizarre thing you have encountered while swiping?
Couple dates, I think, that are, um and can I swear on this?
Yeah, nice.
Okay. Okay, just wanna ask for permission. I literally went on shitty dates, and I don't mean like, "Oh, they were bad." Like, no, there was poop involved some way. And one of the dates I went on, this guy, he we were going out to dinner, he picked me up at my house, and he had a bicycle and a razor scooter slung over his shoulder. So we were going to a date, which I thought, okay, this is different, but let's go for it, like, kind of fun. So jumped on the razor scooter. I'm scooting behind him on the bike. We're going to dinner. We hit a stoplight. He reaches down to tie his shoe, and there's this package that falls out of his chest pocket. And I go, "What's in the package?" And his eyes, like, turn into the size of golf balls, right? He's, like, really
Okay.
hesitant to tell me. And he goes, it's my stool sample." And I go, "Your stool sample? Why do you have this on the date? What is going on?" And he was like, "Oh, well, I'm really into my health, and, like, every 6 months, I send it to this lab in California. I was gonna do it, on the way to pick you up, but I didn't find a mailbox." And, he's going through this whole explanation. I'm like, "Alright, I think we need to find this guy a mailbox." So we end up going to get a mailbox. I'm like, "Oh, there's one right across the street. Let's go." So we go to the mailbox, and he's going to bend and put it in, and he's like, "It won't fit." I'm like, "What do you mean it won't fit?" He's like, "Oh, well, it's" I'm like, "What do you mean it won't fit? It's squishy. Shouldn't it just go right in?" He's like, "No, no, no. It's in a test tube. The test tube will break." So it didn't fit in the mailbox, and I ended up going to dinner with this
Mhm.
guy, with poop in his pocket. And so that was, like, one of the most absurd, and that's not just one of them. I won't go through, like, a million different stories unless you wanna go there, but, um, so it was just like, this is so absurd and hilarious, and,
Yeah.
yeah, I had fun with those encounters. I think some people will walk out of that being like, "Oh my
Mm.
gosh, this person was so horrible and weird," and I just found it intriguing and funny, and, um, dating really shows you the diversity of people that are out there and just how they think, right? I would never go on a date and be like, "You know what? I'm gonna mail this on the way there." With no
Mhm.
backup plan, right?
Yeah.
So, so it's just different people, and, I really enjoy the experiences even if, we don't connect.
I understood. Yeah. Ooh. So, and also like, yeah, and so you have spoken about feeling the pressure of ticking biological clock while dating. So, how did freezing your eggs change the way you approached a relationship and even yourself? Yeah.
Yeah, this one was huge, because when I called up my wedding, I was 32, and then I had done some dating, and I still hadn't found someone, and I was 35. And that's really the timeline where they like literally call you a geriatric pregnancy, and they have all these terms about higher risk for all these things, etc. And I really wanted to have a family. And so I was going, actually, it was hard. The decision to freeze my eggs was really hard because I grew up Roman Catholic. And so the whole concept of like science intervention, it just didn't seem very, very sanctimonious to do that process, right? And not God's plan. But then I kind of was like, you know what? I'm an adult. I can rewrite the rules for life however I want them to be. And I decided that however I have a baby is
Mhm.
beautiful. And so that was, I think, a mental hurdle that I had to get over in order to get in there to actually freeze my eggs. Um, and so um, that really changed. I think it just gave me a little bit of emotional security. Like it's a not 100% guarantee, but it's an insurance plan that I at least am taking agency and having some power over like, in doing what is within my realm of possibility, while I continue to date and whatever else. So it felt like I was trying my best, despite my experiences in the dating world and that I hadn't found a partner. And that I think really calmed me down when it came to the dating experience because I wasn't so much on this like freaking timeline, right? One of the patterns I noticed was I go out with someone and want to know like 3 or 4 dates in, like, okay, where we at? What's the label? And get so caught up in this label in that I wanted to know like the end of the
Mhm.
book, right? Even though when you read a book, you got to read all the pages, but I just wanted to jump to the end. And so that was something where it made me, I think, more patient, more present to just be in the moment and enjoy it, kind of knowing that I had that as a bit of a backup. And another thing that I changed too was um, my blueprint. So, blueprints for your life are essentially how you think about the world, the rules and the regulations that you live within, what's right, what's wrong. And so my blueprint, and if your blueprint doesn't match your current life, it will make you really unhappy. And so what I did instead was change my blueprint. Or my original one was I need to have a husband and 2 kids, right? That's what I want. That's what I want. And so it changed to, you know what? I don't necessarily need kids. I could volunteer. I could be more involved within my nieces and nephews' lives. And that I think also took off the emotional pressure of like, I'm gonna be okay no matter what. Um, so those things really helped, I think, in creating a more present experience within the dating world. And I'll mention just one thing too. I think freezing your eggs is such a black box, that process to everyone. And I made sure, and I remember reading some other girl's memoir where she talks about freezing her eggs and she just blows through it and just mentions, "Oh yeah, I froze my egg," and then like moves on with the story. And I found myself being like, "Okay, but what does freezing your eggs actually entail?" So in my book, if any of your listeners are curious, I go into what that process looks like a little bit more and kind of like I didn't realize that it was more of a mental load than I thought, which was perhaps maybe naive of me. But yeah, it's pretty intensive. You have to shoot yourself with hormones every day, and I was traveling for work, so and some of these things have to be refrigerated, so I was, like,
Mhm.
schlepping through the airport with, like, a whole cooler of stuff. I mean, I felt like a
Mhm.
crazy lady, but, so yeah, the process is pretty involved.
Oh, okay. Okay, understood. And then, uh, also, like, uh, I mean, casual sex is such a nuanced topic in dating. So, how do you approach it in a way that feels empowering rather than confusing or harmful?
Think you have to understand where you are on that spectrum, right? Of whether you are someone that can have casual sex or not. And for me, I mean, you could do that beforehand, or you could actually try it out and see how it goes. And I was finding that it didn't feel empowering for me because I was having it too early within the relationship, and I was expecting so much even though we hadn't talked about expectations for the relationship, right? So we'd have sex and then I'd expect him to be calling me and texting me like a boyfriend, but we hadn't talked about that, right? And I think especially with online dating where you have an endless supply of people within the market, it just becomes so much more imminent to be able to have that conversation because there are so many other options out there. And I called it at first, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm cool. I can do this, like, no problem. But then I find myself by like week 3 checking my phone, being anxious, like going on social media, checking his profile. And I dubbed it the 3-week mirror in my book. Essentially, it's like, it's showing me the reality instead of like what I thought I could be. And so I would say the first step is probably figure out where you are on that spectrum, either through practice and tuning into your body and being really body forward in terms of like, oh, is this, am I feeling really settled or is it making me more anxious? Uh, and the answer will probably, that will lead you to whether how you should feel empowered when it comes to sex. There are multiple ways to do it.
Understood. Understood. Lovely. So, Charity, thank you so much for joining us today and for showing your raw, relatable, and ridiculously funny insights into the wild ride that is modern dating. And
Thanks so much, Shavik.
yeah, and for anyone who's listening who wants to laugh, heal, and find inspiration, make sure to grab Charity's book. And we are all dating the same guy. So, uh, do not forget to follow Pleasure Principles for more conversations like this one and share this episode with a friend who could use some laughter and love today. So, until next time, this is your host Avik signing off. Stay curious, stay bold, and stay true to yourself. So, thank you so much.